Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Georgie Fleming, and I'm one of the Education and Media Technicians here at Caseware UK. Today, I'm joined by Matt Swan, the Product Owner of Smart Engagements, and during today's webinar, we will be looking at UK Xtend. Matt is going to be taking you through the presentation while I'll be answering the questions you raise during the session. Before I hand over to Matt, there are some housekeeping items we will run through. I have mentioned questions. Please do type them into the questions field on the webinar rather than using the hand raising. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and we will try and incorporate as many of your questions into that session as we can. We are recording this webinar today, and we will publish the recording on the knowledge base. And depending on how many questions we receive, we may also publish a Q&A document. Without further ado, I shall hand you over to Matt.
Thanks, Georgie, and good afternoon, everyone. My name's Matt. I'm the product owner for Smart Engagement. Smart Engagement is the platform on which Xtend has been built. So just before we get into the actual product, I just want to run through actually what's new, what we've changed, and really the reasons behind it. So we've gone through and we've improved the interface. We're trying to make it a lot more user-friendly to give you as the auditors or accountants the ability to provide bespoke or tailored checklists to your clients that will meet their needs, but we're trying to improve the speed in which you can do that. Now, this improved interface should improve that efficiency. So we've gone through and done a whole overhaul on how we can go through and actually tailor individual elements. Now, with regards to the improved interface, we'll now be improving the filtering as well. So previously, there's no way for people to be able to tell whereabouts they are, at which certain stage, how many questions have been raised, how many questions have been responded to by their clients. We've put a filtering system within the individual queries to make it easier for you as the auditor to see what's been responded, what you've returned to your clients, and then in return, the client will be able to see what they've returned to you and what you guys have reopened as well. So we can start filtering through the different question sets as we work our way in. We've also gone through and stripped out the custom template in the year 1 and year 2 template. We've tried to provide a much more compressed, streamlined version of the product. By putting everything into one template, it will allow you as the users to go through and insert customizations into some of the bespoke queries that you guys have created, but it will also allow you to incorporate those bespoke queries with our default queries as well. So you've got everything now sitting in one template. So for the end user, it's a much simpler process to decide which template do I base it on. We've stripped out that decision-making system for you, so people can go through and pick out just that one individual element. And it means all your queries now sit within the same area as well. So if you need to make any edits, you're not having to hunt through the different templates to try and work out which one you've edited. So it just makes the administration of it that little bit easier. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight into showing you how the feature looks. So what we've gone through and done is this is how the old feature would look as far as the Xtend product was concerned. It was quite streamlined to start off with. However, it was a little bit trickier going through editing and raising your own questions or tailoring the questions that we'd put in there as a starting point. Everything was using the edit button, so you had at least one click before you could make any adjustments, and then there was multiple clicks afterwards for us to go through. What we've done now is we've sped up the process by removing the edit button and allowing users to go through and start inserting questions and tailoring the questions on the face of the actual query itself. So there's no difference in the views anymore. There's no edit view and no normal view for the end user. So without further ado, I'm going to take you into the actual product just to give you an idea of how that will look and work and the actual tailoring of elements. I'll show you the filtering as well, and I'll also show you how to customize the templates should people want to. So it will give you the ability to go in and create your own checklist that you can use and moving forward. So what I've got on screen is an Xtend product. So if I show you my document manager, this hasn't really changed at all. All we've done is we've given a quick start guide and queries into one folder just to, again, just remove some of the clutter from our desktop. The quick start guide, if I was to open that up, will just give you the ability to go through and quickly access our interactive guide. So those of you that have been set up on our knowledge base hopefully would have seen some of our interactive guides. But we've got now the Getting Started guide, and it's an online walkthrough tutorial. Really good toolkit for users that are unfamiliar with any of our products. So the education and media team have spent a lot of time putting in some really good content. If I come back to the document manager, what we'll have in process to insert queries, as we previously provided us with the face-to-face update, it's much clearer, a bit of guidance for users to go through. You can tailor this as well if you needed to. If I scroll down, we'll then start seeing how these questions are shaped. So we can see is to be able to update our responses, it's now a simple click onto here, and we can put in an individual response. We can type over the responses that exist, or alternatively, we can add another response really quickly just by clicking through and clicking on the plus button. So it allows us to go through and make adjustments to those pick list options rather than having to go through the edit button and the three-dot pencil. We've also got the ability to click into here and change the text. So we can put in further text here. So we can start updating this if we needed to. So it's a really quick process for us to be able to go through and start inserting further questions. Now, some of the questions will lead us on to other questions. So in order for us to see all of those questions, we still have the same visibility options. So users would still be able to see the visibility options using the icon, and they'd still be able to go through, and under the settings option, you'd be able to additions in if you wanted to do it that way as well. To see all of the questions, we've still got the ability to go through and view all the visibility icon nice and clearly over on the right-hand side. Selecting that will just provide us with the information as to why that particular question is hidden or why it's being shown at this particular juncture. Now, what we'll also be able to do, and part of the medium which we can start, so if we wanted to add our own questions in, we can go through and click on a little plus button, and there straight away we've got our response type. So we can pick, say, text in here, and we could put in a summary. So changes in bookkeeping system, and we can go through and start typing in a new question here. And we can start adding information in should we need to. Now, this gives us the text input, so we can get any changes to the actual response type. You have got the ability to go into the settings again and just change that response type should you need to. Had previously are still available to the end user. It's just the initial creating of that particular area. Now, what you'll see over on the left-hand side is a much quicker way of being able to navigate through here. Previously, there was a collapse option. Click on our purchases and creditors set out to those and jump to a particular house again to navigate through. The sorting has been improved as well. So if I wanted to move my changes in bookkeeping system, you can see now that within stocks, if I was to look at stock count, in here, I can see my changes in bookkeeping system. So we've tried to provide the ease of moving them try through here. As far as the response, exactly the same response type. So you still have your pick list and multi pick list, file uploads, text, and what we'll still be able to do as checklist on here would be able to link the responses to a checklist, and we'd be able to go through and add that to a checklist in exactly the same way as we could on the older version. Within a particular pick list question, we can go through and add in our responses. Hey, another, I can put in my question type in here. Once I've got that information in, you'll see we've got the options for link to checklist. But what we'll also be able to do, if I just refresh my screen, is this will allow, if I'd set this up as a upload file, it will allow us to select the destination that we're linking to. So where I see my select destination, I can go through here, and when I receive a file from a client, I'm sitting and dictate exactly the ability to select whereabouts we're saving documents to. So when we're looking at this and send them to the client, if I click on the send, the date in which we want to send the query, or we can put in the body of the text. Now, once I've got that information in, if I click on OK, we'll be able to see that it changes from draft to awaiting response. Movement now gives us a countdown, so we can see the number of days in which we're expecting a response. Side, we get a new area within. I go through the filtering side of it. So where we've got the filtering kicking in, we can see we're waiting response for 20 of our questions, and then underneath it we could see further drill downs into responded, returned, or completed. So we can start seeing all of that text as well kicking in. Now, what you'll notice, hopefully, is that the pick list responses will put themselves into an inline format if that's the selection that was made when the file was set up, rather than a drop-down format. So previously we had yes, no, and not applicable coming down the page. However, this is how the client would see it. So again, we've stuck with that one-click response type for the client. So that's how it will look from the user's perspective. If we look at it from a client's perspective, what the client will receive is exactly the same email type that they would have previously received, a much neater interface as well. So what the client will be able to see are the filters showing up on the left-hand side. So they'll always be able to see what they've returned to you, but also what you've signed off as completed. So they'll always be able to refer back to the information that you guys have accepted as well. Previously, once you as the auditor had accepted a particular question from the client would no longer be able to see what their response was or their original response. So this just gives us the ability to start reviewing all of that information, and it allows us to actually tailor our views as well a little bit more. So where we see these questions, again, if I was to click on yes, what you'll see is here the awaiting response, and that's purely because it shows up our bookkeeping and the trial balance kicking in as responded. So while we've said yes to this, we could insert a comment. This is still Excel format. So we could put in a message and we can put in comments. And so the comments now will give us almost like a social media thread where we'll be able to see that information coming down on that individual card. This will collapse after 5 messages, so then that will show you all of the conversation thread for that particular card. So you can have, like I say, a maximum of 5 in view at any one time. Now, for us to mark this as responded, all I'm going to do is click on this circle over on the right-hand side, clear that the client goes through and clicks on it. So that is something, the signposting, we are looking to improve on. However, once I've clicked on it, again, you'll see that the count will go through and update itself as we work our way through here. Dragging and dropping, so if I was putting processes before, so I'll be able to pick out my TB, drag it and drop it, and it will give me my trial balance in there, and I can put in a message if I wanted to. And once I've got that information in, again, I can mark this as responded. Now, as we scroll through here, what we'll be able to note is we do have the user's perspective will be being shifted along. Coming back into my document, I'll be able to see from my perspective, to mark these as responded, you still have the same options as previous. You can go through, you can reopen the entire query and send that back to the client. You can flag each individual question, so I can mainly reopen that particular question. Everything else will retain being responded. And finally, we've got the option to mark this completely as previous until we've accepted it. Ability for the end user to have to go through and accept that information that they're receiving, just to make sure it's the actual correct info able to see folder. So, and that's purely just to make sure we're reviewing the information we're getting from the client before we get it onto our any of our documents. Okay, now if I flag this as complete, what will be a client's perspective, the client, because it's all now being complete, the client won't see it, but that information will still be able to see at any stage. Now, what we've also been able to do, and this was a work in papers 2019 update through and open the query directly from our through, and so this will open it up over on the right-hand side. And then I've got the simple ability to go through and just drag and drop these functions between the working version of Work in Papers 2019, the update 1, will have an option for a push as well, or a pull. Now, what that will do is in the future, we're going to be putting bookmarks on each of these areas so we can automatically push contacting internally. So that'll be a case of watch this space. Now, for the last 10 minutes, I'm just going to go through and just show you the editing into what we'll see from Cloud is, as I said before, we've gone in, so when we creatively for us to go through and start editing it and putting customizations in, if I come down to settings as the firm admin for this, and I've now only got one template in, a year 2 and a custom, a little bit complicated for you. Now, if I click on the create draft option, the create draft option will take me into my actual template, and this will allow me to go through all of the default Caseware UK checklists that we've provided users with. You've got the option there to suppress this. So if we use the suppress, create their own files, so we can suppress any of the content that Caseware UK has created. If we go into the files, what we'll also be able to do is we'll suppress any of these content areas as well. So we can suppress items. We can question that you don't want to go through and switch those areas off. You can as well switch off a complete section. So the contact details, by clicking on it on the header, that'll go through and suppress it for all of it. Adding in the query, as you see, or an extra question is as simple as clicking on the plus and then selecting the area that you want to go through and build in. Now, what you'll also be able to do is if there's a particular firm question for whatever reason, you will have the ability to select it. Now, the difference between these two is the query, if we were to was to select that, it would open up automatically on every individual engagement file that we created within Xtend, but you could only use it the once, so you couldn't reinsert it. So if it was something that you sent to your client each quarter, you couldn't use the same engagement file. You'd have to create an engagement file for each quarter. The query template will allow us to reinsert it from this plus button, so we can select it from our list of queries. So we'd always probably recommend use the query template. If I put in my identifier as well, I'm going to put in an identifier here and my example here. So this will go through, and this is where we can put in the guidance. So this instruction area, this is for our clients to be able to know exactly how they should be responding. We have got some videos on YouTube that are free to your contacts to actually access. So you could potentially put links into there to give them a bit of instruction of what they needed to do to respond to this particular area. So this will allow us to put in hyperlinks if we needed. In order to get the questions going, we click on the plus over on the left-hand side to get a question set. So this could be Matt's example. And then I'll be able to go through and start putting in a pick list, for example. And again, let's go with Matt and George. So I could put in please select the trainer. Oh, that's awful spelling. Do apologise for that. And then underneath it, we could put in a bit of text to say training requirements. So if I was using this as a training area, we could go through and ask them to put in their training requirements underneath it. So what we'll do, your training requirements. So we can put that information in, and again, trainer up here, and what you'll see, hopefully over here, is it'll go through and update that information. So we can start putting that information in, should we wish to, engagement query. If I wanted to make adjustments. Visibility, as I said, we can go in. If I go into my settings, you've got the ability still to put in your visibility. So I'm just going to show this one when the trainer being Georgie. Now, as I also said, there's a one-click response. So again, using that 3-dot button, we've got the display in line So the display in line just puts them right next to each other, just sharpens it up a little. Now, once we've gone on our document manager, as the user though, you can flag it so it sits on all of the Xtend by selecting query, and we could go through and select out our example if we need manager at the same time, prepared all of the information and changes I want. What we would then be in a position to do is select our publish template, and that publish template will then be available for all of our users. So once I select publish template, I can then go into my Xtend, and if I create a new one, to publish my template and allow me to select Matt will work in exactly the same way, and we can see that kicking in. And then it's just a simple case of send to our individual contact. Contain your individual questionnaires or your individual changes. So the firm settings, there'll be an update button. That's covering all of the changes that we've put through. Hopefully you can see that there is a marked improvement in the usability and the speed in which we can start making the tailoring. But what I'm going to do now is just hand back to Georgie for any questions and the final wrap up. So Georgie, if I can hand back to you.
Perfect, thanks Matt. We didn't receive any questions during the webinar today, but if you do think of any questions after the webinar, once the webinar's finished, you will receive a feedback form, so you can note any in there. If we look ahead at our upcoming webinars, you can see them there on screen. You can view the agendas for all of our webinars and also register for them over on the events page of our website. So that concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much for your time today. We do hope you enjoyed it. Please do take the time at the end to complete the feedback form. We'd really appreciate it. And if you have any ideas for future content, please let us know and we'll look to include it on our schedule. So thank you very much for your time today, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.